Hey everybody, Tony Imperatrice here, and today we're taking our third look at my Rodgers Model 725B built in 1979, and today we're going to really get into it. I'm going to show you how I'm fixing the keyboards on this instrument. Now the first thing we have to do is get into the keyboards. So I took the lid off and the roll top out earlier, and now we got to fold this thing open. On most really well-designed consoles, you can just do literally that, fold it open. There we go. The first thing we got to do is pop the spring off of the frame. There's a spring back here, there's a little formed tab in the key shank and another formed tab in the key frame, and so I'm going to pop the springs off the frame by using this little hook awl here. Get in underneath there and do this. Next we have to get the keys away from the pressed steel frame. Now the pivot point on these keyboards is a nice bronze bushing, and the shank of the key swedges into grooves on that bushing. This is a really rugged design. So to do that, we're going to put a little pressure with this screwdriver and a little pressure with my finger, and up she comes. Then we can slip it out. We have to have the piston rail loose for that. And here's where we reveal the weak spot of these keys. The control of the travel and the side-to-side stability are taken care of by this rubber donut piece here. The problem is, of course, rubber tends to harden and crack over time, and then the keyboard becomes problematic. I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to use some felt on the key frame to control the side-to-side motion, and I'm going to use some leather inside the channel in order to control the up and down movement of the key. So the next thing we have to do is cut our materials that we're going to use to form the new bushings and the new stop points for the keyboard travel. And here I'm using some material that's used in piano actions. This is a leather material that's used in the mechanism of a piano, and I have a bunch of this. And on the upper keyboard I use this as the stop points inside the channel for the keyboard travel, and it really kind of produces some nice results. Now to cut this up, I'm using a cutting mat that you can get at an artist supply store, and it has these nice measuring points on it, and so we're going to cut this into 3/8 wide strips. Now for the bushings that are going to be wrapped around the pin or the tab that's on the keyboard frame to keep the key from wobbling side to side. This is an actual bushing cloth material. This is used in wooden core keyboards. There'll be a notch inside the wood, and then a little piece of this will be on either side, and then that'll follow a guide pin so that the key doesn't wobble or turn side to side. You could use a similar felt that you get from a fabric store or hobby shop. The leather could also, for the stop points, you could substitute this or some other felt. And in this case, these need to be cut to a bunch of pieces 3/4 inches in length. So again, I can use my handy cutting board here with the measuring points on it, and I can just start lobbing off 3/4 of an inch, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, And I just need 61 of these. And it's better to go just a skosh over if you're in doubt. Okay, so we're going to start getting the glue on here. We have our contact cement and some little cheapy glue brushes I picked up at a hobby store. And I'm just going to try and get it in there. Now the leather, we'll do the same thing. Measure this out. Going to have 2 pieces here. And again, we want to get a pretty good generous amount on here. Okay, our glue has set up nicely, and now we're just tacking the leather piece up against the top end of this channel. I'm using a small screwdriver and my thumb to kind of push it to the back of the channel. Screwdriver to kind of lift it up. And then we'll just do kind of the reverse of this on the bottom rail. Nice tight bump there. There we go. Now for this upper tab, what we're doing is we're going to get this felt on here, and then it's going to wrap around the pin so that we have a single thickness of felt on both sides of the tab and a double thickness of felt on the top of the tab. That gives us the correct thicknesses in all 3 positions so that the key will have a nice firm travel and won't wobble side to side, and it'll have a second point at which to stop its downward travel so that all the pressure is not completely on that tab that's on the key itself. So what we're going to do here, we're going to reopen our contact cement, and we're going to do these about 10 at a time. And so the way that's going to go down is I'm going to take 10 tabs, and I'm just going to start in the middle here so you can maybe see it better. I'm going to put a nice generous amount of contact cement. I'm going to take just the end, and we're going to put a generous amount just on the end of the felt. The felt is only going to be glued by its end points. Okay, now that we've let the glue dry on the tab and on the end of the felt, we're going to put these felts in position. I'm using these little clamp tweezers. Get a grip on that. And then I can kind of slip it in so it goes down between the tabs. And then the tab itself is kind of T-shaped, so you want to get past that cross section and then tack it down so it lines up with the edge of the tab. Okay, so last night, after I got all of these felts attached to these metal tabs with the contact cement, I let them dry for several hours, and then late in the evening I put contact cement on this top surface on all of them, and I let the whole thing set up overnight. And then this morning now we're going to do the wraparound, and there's kind of a little continuous process with this. So I've got these clothespin clips holding the previous ones down. I've got my clamping tweezers holding the most recent one down, and so now I can show you the procedure on this. So the first thing that happens is I take the popsicle stick and then I can flip this around so that I can get to the top inside surface here. Then I put a nice dab of contact cement on that. And then we let that set for 3 minutes. And I'm using my stopwatch function on my smartphone here to time that. Okay, so we're now at the 3-minute mark. The glue on this tab has been setting up for that amount of time. So now I can take my clamp tweezers out, replace it with my farthest out clothespin, put that in there. Now get the popsicle stick out of the way. And I've got these tweezers. These are, if you can see it here, kind of got a tooth feature that interlocks. And that grabs nicely onto the felt. And we want to get this felt, remember that the tab is kind of T-shaped. So we want to get it past that T-shaped cross-section so that there's not like a thick spot in the middle of our bushing here. So we get our tweezers on here to hold that initially. Reset my stopwatch. Get my popsicle stick in here to flip the felt into position. Put the glue on. And we do it all over again. The next step is to clean the keys. And what I've done here is I have paper towel and I've gotten it just barely damp with some water, wringed it out really well. And then we're going to add to that a little bit of rubbing alcohol. We don't want a really strong solution of alcohol. We just want enough that it really cuts through the grease and grime that's built up over the last 40 years. And we can clean those keys right up. As we're putting the keys in, we got to kind of plan ahead. Because when there's a black key in between two white keys, we have to make sure we put that black key in first, because if we put the white key in, we'll never get the black key in. Now the next key in the batch has the black key to one side, but it's just straight on the other side. So we line this up. We have to get, this is the actuator for the actual key contacts. So there's a little opening here, you got to get that in there. Ease it over so the tab goes underneath into the channel where the leather is. Line it up on those grooves in the bearing, and then we push it down, and there it is. Now the next thing is with these freshly glued bushings, and this happens in piano work as well, you kind of have to go here, do a little side pressure both ways, and work that bushing a little bit until the key runs nice and free but is firm side to side. Now the next thing we need to do is to lift this up and make sure the key contacts are set in place like they need to be. Each of the key contacts sits in a little notch here in this little sort of piston that extends from the key. I'm going to make sure those are all where they need to be. You want to be really delicate with this. So here we are, and looks like success. Everything's working. So now the only thing left is to start putting the console back together. So put the piston rail in place. And everything else just kind of folds down. And I can put the lid and the roll top down. And then I've got a fully functioning organ to practice on. Now the next thing I want to do to this instrument is I'm going to hot rod the audio system. And there it is, all in one piece. Now the question remains, all that work I did to put in felt bushings and leather stop points instead of just replacing those rubber donuts, is that better? Well, we'll see. It seems to feel better. It's a nicer keyboard. I'm fairly certain that the leather and the felt will last longer. The problem with rubber parts is that they tend to just kind of rot in place whether they're being used or not. This took 3 days. Now that's not 3 8-hour days, but it's several hours spread over 3 days because we've got to wait for glue to dry and that kind of thing. So I don't know that this would really work out as a field repair, but as a DIY project for somebody like me who likes to tinker with old stuff, it's probably a good way to go. So, did you like that video? Would you like to see more? Well, there's 3 ways you can help. First and most important, please subscribe to my page. Also, go over and visit my Patreon page and see how you can get exclusive content. Or, if you'd like to just leave me a little gratuity, you can do so on PayPal, and you can find those links in the video description. Thank you.